Yes, Your Honor, all present.
Okay, I'm now going to read today we're going to do things a little different. We're going to recess into closed session. The chair will entertain a motion to recess into a closed session pursuant to the exemptions from the open meeting allowed by Section 2.23711A Code of Virginia, as amended for the following purposes. Publicly held property, discussions or considerations of the acquisition of real property for public purpose or of dispossession of publicly held property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiation strategy of the public body pursuant to Section 2.23711A3, and that would be pertaining to Princess Anne District. Prospective businesses or industry. Discussions concerning a prospective business or industry or expansion of existing business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of businesses or industry interested in locating and expanding to facilities in the community pursuant to Section 2.23711A5, Princess Anne District. Mrs. Henley, you're very busy today.
I think I'm going to be very busy.
All righty. And legal matters, consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members or consultants pertaining to actual or probable litigation, where such consultation or briefing in an open meeting would adversely affect the negotiation or litigating posture of the public body pursuant to Section 2.23711A7, Holloway versus City of Virginia Beach, and Mill Edge versus Relaford, City of Virginia Beach. And legal matters, consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by the public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel pursuant to Section 2.23711A8A, and that's expressive activity at the municipal center. Public contract, discussion of an award of a public contract involving the expenditure of public funds and discussion of the terms and scope of such contract, where discussion in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiation strategy of the public body pursuant to Section 2.23711A29, and that would be Atlantic Park. And then personnel matters, discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public body pursuant to Section 2.23711A1. That's council appointments, council boards, commissions, committees, authorities, agencies, and appointees, and appointee evaluations. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion and a second. Vote's open, and boy, was that a long one.
I'm sorry, who was the second, Mayor?
I'm the second.
Thank you, Mr. Tower.
All righty.
Mr. Moss, thank you. 11 to 0, you've recessed into closed session.
Okay, we are recessed into executive. Just to let people know, Mr. Bellucci was not feeling well, so he adjourned a little bit early. But we're going to go ahead and proceed. Mr. Dehaney.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, at this time, we're going to have Taylor Adams, Deputy City Manager, to give you a briefing on the Dome Site project.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. And also before I dive into this, I want to quickly recognize that or acknowledge that Michael Culpepper, our Venture Realty, our partner in this project, is here today. I want to thank Michael for his assistance and all of the work that his team has done as we work through this. I'll jump forward and let you all read through, and as you read through the disclosures, I'll also quickly like to extend thanks to all members of city staff that have worked on this project. I arrived here. I think this one fell directly to me roughly 2 to 3 weeks ago, and there was, but again, would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge all of the members of the team that have worked on advancing the project to this point. Give you all one more moment here. Today we have five potential topics that we are bringing. Of course, we're always happy to take any additional questions from you all, but those five are an update on the Atlantic Park Development Agreement amendments, parking garage costs, offsite infrastructure requests, construction management and inspections program, and potential next steps that you might take, and a couple of additional items that have come to bear in the last few hours. Regarding the development agreement amendment, and I should say that for you and for the public, you're going to see this is essentially exactly the presentation that you all saw just a few moments ago. But for the public seeing it for the first time, here's a quick layout of what we're calling phase one of the project. You'll see phase two below, but everything we're talking about today pertains to phase one, and specifically what we're now calling phase 1A. Things that this development agreement amendment that is before you would allow us to do, it allows for project phasing, and as we just showed you in the map, phases 1 and 2. It modifies a performance grant cap to allow for that phasing, and that's very important for us because, again, as this is something was not originally contemplated, but we do support in the present, is that this allows us to divide what would have been the first $5 million performance incentive across the two phases, $3 million for the first, $2 million for the second. This further defines our garage parking agreement. It extends our pre-development phase to May 1st of 2022, and it extends our outside financing commitment date to align with that pre-development phase of June 1st, 2022. But it's important to note that we would not move towards closing with less than 30 days notice. Here's one of the primary changes that we're bringing before you today with this amendment that we think will ultimately be helpful. The original document assumed that we would get a guaranteed maximum price immediately after pre-development. What this does is, you can see, it slides that guaranteed maximum price forward to the end of the construction document phase. The reason that request has been advanced, and the reason that we're bringing it to you today, is we've been in unprecedented times as it relates to commodities pricing associated with construction, and as opposed to guessing, we thought it was best to know. And so this does exactly that. This allows us to advance our price to the point that we can tell you to a 90%, basically at 90% design or more, what our pricing would be. Our development agreement amendment also allows for a series of administrative matters. The only thing that I'll mention, as everyone reads those, the one thing I will mention here is, you all will recall that the Knight-Wagner legislation that the General Assembly approved to assist us with this project requires some notice be sent to the Assembly, and this would allow us, this would contemplate that as well. Our pre-development design, this is an extension of what we showed you with the schedule just a moment ago. To ensure that we can continue designing, obviously, this request assumes that approximately $3.1 million will be needed to complete the city's design, and so this allows for those funds to be spent. Now, it's important to note, these are funds that are already appropriated and that are contemplated that we would spend for exactly this purpose. This just gives us the ability to continue spending as we work towards the guaranteed maximum price, and we work to the certainty that we owe you in the public. The dates that you see here, these, as you all will remember, we thought we might be advancing this to you about a month ago. These are the dates that you saw. We would just tell you, expect that we're sliding 30 to 45 days here, and but that this is still the schedule as we see it. As we get into parking, we want to show you, here is a conceptual image of this phase one that we are talking about. You can see our surf lagoon as well as the two buildings there on the top. So one of the things that we've been talking about are our parking costs, and that's important because as you remember, the things that you will own here are you will own parking garages primarily, and you will own an entertainment venue, and so our document or our development agreement as it stands contemplates an amount not to exceed $30,000 per space. We are seeing that's a real number in the marketplace. One of the decisions that is before you is whether we continue with an amount not to exceed $30,000 per space, or if we just accept $30,000 per space. We would tell you at the staff level that is something that is right for your consideration. In the event that we stay with an amount not to exceed $30,000 per space, I should tell you that what we are seeing in the market for this type of parking is consistent with that or more. But if you stick with that plan, it would require that we would then need to hire basically a management firm to validate those costs and to assure that we were not paying for things that weren't assigned us. And there's of course a cost that comes with that. Alternatively, you could just accept $30,000 per space, knowing that is consistent with other projects that we are seeing in the market real time. Offsite infrastructure. This so again, you can see the same pieces that basically the same part of the project we showed you earlier with some green, red, and purple lines outlining projects. If we were to really dive into those projects, you would see this schedule of projects specifically within there. Now, you'll see these are called offsite infrastructure requests. What's important to know about these are all project enhancements. Now, if we had known 4.5 years ago what we know now, we would have brought everything on this schedule as something that needed to be done as part of this project. But this is just the nature of learning as we have gone through this, but we just simply did not know what we know now. We do think these are right for your consideration. We believe that all in, those project execution of those projects will require approximately $17.8 million. Now, the question becomes, how would we fund that? It's important, and it's important to note that we're calling these offsite because these are not, as you saw on the map just a moment ago, these are external to the project, and this is public infrastructure that really provides an enhancement to everyone in the area. So the question is, if we're to add $17.8 million to the project budget to assume that we maximize the value and benefit to the public in the project, we thought it would be best to research a way to do this. One of the ways that you could do this that we think is very efficient for a number of reasons. I'll speak about those in just a moment. But first, we could establish a new CIP, a new capital improvement plan project for offsite infrastructure. We would then authorize the manager to loan funds to that CIP or in that CIP to the Atlantic Park CDA for the purpose of causing the construction of the offsite infrastructure. Those loan funds would be repaid to the city from the CDA by one of two means. When revenues exceeded the amount of money required for debt service in the CDA, that money would come back to the city. Or in the event that we were not able to repay the city through that mechanism, what we would do is after our debt is retired for our part that is within the CDA, the revenues of the CDA would be used to pay the city back prior to dissolving the CDA. So at either rate, this is a road that allows us to guarantee that the city is fully recovers this through but-for revenues associated with the project. Once that was done, we would anticipate that a cost participation agreement with the developer to accomplish construction of offsite infrastructure, which could come after amending the CDA's authorizing ordinance and the CDA authorizing execution of the cost participation agreement. So this would basically just mean that we would enter into a contract with our development partner's general contractor to conduct this work on behalf of the public. Now, one of the things that we like about this structure, and I want to thank the member of council that participated in basically helping us put this together. It was a great idea. is because this leaves all of the other projects in your capital improvement plan untouched. This does not change the priority. This does not change the assignment. This doesn't change anything within your CIP. This is simply something that is added to accomplish the work needed to maximize the value of this project. It's delivered by our development team, and of course, it would be inspected by our Public Works group. Speaking of construction management and inspection costs during this budget, I won't read this, but just so that you all know, we understand that we have an obligation to you to ensure that we are safeguarding the public's assets and ensuring that you all are getting exactly what you were promised. And so during this budget, you'll see a new request from us to establish funds directly for construction management and inspection. As it relates to next steps, understanding that many of you are ready to bring this project to conclusion and move forward. If you are ready to move forward with this amended development agreement, we could bring you an ordinance at a future date to adopt the Atlantic Park Development Agreement, a memorandum for continuing the pre-development design, and to establish a new CIP for offsite infrastructure. We would lean on you for instruction as to when to bring that back. Further, though, there are two additional items that have really come to bear in the last 24 hours that we do think are additionally appropriate for your consideration. The first of those is the concept of a bifurcated closing, which is just a nice way of saying a two-phase closing. And so, as it relates, and then also the way to address, and I'll come back to the first in just a moment, final costing as it relates to our entertainment venue, recognizing that we're in unprecedented times as it relates to particularly the prices of construction or concrete and steel. We can't tell you today that the budget that you have for the entertainment venue is adequate to cover the cost. We feel good about the research that's been done, but this is just me standing before you admitting what I don't know. And so instead of asking you to adopt what is a somewhat arbitrary number based on a guess, I just want to set up and be as honest as possible, just to say that we will be back to you at a date in the future with a final cost for your entertainment venue, which may require that we deal with overruns at that point, but we hope that's not the case. Coming back to the concept of a bifurcated closing. And so what this would allow us to do simply is maximize the construction schedule. So our entertainment venue, I will tell you, many of our oceanfront stakeholders are interested in us getting our entertainment venue online as quickly as possible. And so this is a means by which we can begin that work right away. However, what it would mean is the portion of the project that included your surf park would close at a later date, but would close with quite a bit of investment at risk on behalf of the developer. I'm not going to get into all of that here today because, again, this is, as I mentioned, this is something that has come about in the last 24 hours. But some elements that we can say to a relative certainty would be included in that are that the city's obligation under this bifurcated closing would be obligated at $3 million that we could attribute to site work, and that the developer would also be contributing to that. We can tell you that the developer would have closed their construction loan, including the equity that their lender required be put in at that point, and we could tell you that there would have been a considerable investment made in the equipment to support the surf park in the subsequent phase. And so that is, as it relates to wanting to preserve the maximum amount of time for your questions, that's all I'll say about that item standing here in front. Well, and I'll also add an outside time horizon of December 31st of this year, of 22 for that closing. That said, I do want to say for the public, though, our outside counsel and the city attorney's team will be working to distill a series of basically a term sheet, as you were, that we could post for the public to review as quickly as possible and ahead of whatever date you told us to come back. With that, I'd like to stop and take any questions.
Mr. Moss.
I don't have any questions. I do want to make a statement.
Yes, sir. I
asked all my questions, and I can give the other part on Facebook. I wasn't able to participate in this evolution of this project for some time due to my investments in Dominion Energy Virginia and with Exxon. The facets of these deals have been included, and I didn't see those till like maybe the last 2 months.
Yes, sir.
I made it known before there was knowledge that I had a conflict, that I thought that the public part of this in terms of debt was not the highest and best use
Yes, sir.
of the city's debt capacity, and I still hold to that assessment. But I accepted that decision after I could participate. And in fact, I worked with Barry Knight to sponsor that very legislation that got passed for the CDA
Yes,
and
sir.
worked on that heavily, and I thought if we're going to do it, that is the right vehicle for doing it.
Yes, sir.
So some people characterizing that I'm in a minority and not always into yes. I'm into yes, but yes for the right reasons. Also, venture capital's initial, well, venture, I should say, not capital, venture's initial submission
Freudian slip.
did not include an entertainment venue. If all this can recall, that was never included. That was the push of our former city manager and Mr. Williams' venue, maybe representing other interests on the body. But that was a totally public facility with a private company, Live Nation, being the operator of that facility. Not too long ago, the cost of that facility went up about $9 million, if my memory is correct.
That's accurate. Yes, sir.
Yes, and I didn't support the $9 million increase because once again, that puts a lien on resources and it's a price increase. And I thought that they could make requirement adjustments just like families do. So I didn't support that. But lastly, we were talked about the offsite infrastructure. That,
Yes, sir.
We talked about. That kind of fell into a purgatory. Both parties looked around and said, how did we miss that? And there was some CIP pages that got changed and no one saw it. We adopted it. No finger pointing would get us to any conclusion. Well, I wasn't enthusiastic about that. I was the council member that did propose the solution that you talked about that could
Yes,
make
sir.
this work, that we could talk to the public, that we were keeping faith with the public by that vehicle. And I still believe that is true.
Thank
So,
you.
so far, we're on right and yes. But then we came to today and we got to wrong, in my view, just my view, wrong, not right, on getting to yes. Because now we are bifurcating the closure and we are accepting risk. Risk that we haven't articulated with the public and give them a chance to be educated. And I don't think that comes across in the briefing materials that are written.
Yes, sir.
Certainly comes across in the oral testimony. And normally we would have a public hearing and then we'd have an intervening week and then we'd have a vote because that gives people a chance to read, if they choose. And most of the public doesn't choose. I'll be honest about that. But there are parts of the public that do. And the record that we have to share would not be one that you could get by the Security Exchange Commission if you're trying to issue debt. So it's less than full disclosure and less than transparent as to the risk. So I think we are understating the risk, in my opinion. I certainly respect the rights of my colleagues to come to a different conclusion. So on a process point of view, we just heard this today, and normally we wouldn't be voting next Tuesday on something we just heard today. That is not our normal cycle, so we aren't living by our own rules, but it's not the first time, as Councilman Rouse has pointed out to me. So I'm not claiming that there hasn't been original sin before. I'm just pointing out is the public is the people being compressed on their right to participate
Yes, sir.
for the benefit of the developer, and I just think that's wrong. Now we get back to the point of getting back to the substance of the issue, which is really now about the acceptance of risk. And tonight, we really, even in this presentation, the whole discussion of what the risks are and what they might be, and that we may never see a wave park.
Yes, sir.
That's a possibility. I think we have to not, and then other people say, well, we would do something else. But I think your comment, and you've done a great job presenting this, and I'm a big fan of yours. We just
Thank
don't
you,
happen to
Councilman.
agree on this issue, but that doesn't
Yes,
take
sir.
away from the outstanding job you do. People can have difference of opinion. But I think if we knew all this stuff 4 years ago, all these costs, I don't know what the decision would have been.
Yes,
And I
sir.
think
That's
you
fair.
acknowledged that yourself.
Yes, sir.
I just think the public sees us constantly renegotiating how a deal concludes, and then the cost risk. For example, and you shared very nicely, that we could spend $3 million to get the 100% contract design and get costs, and more than likely, the entertainment venue can't be built within the current appropriated dollars in the CIP and would require more money. That wasn't an if, it was pretty much like you can count on it.
Yes, sir.
Yes, so we're really agreeing to, not tonight, we're not voting, and I do appreciate we're not doing that tonight, but we are really agreeing to a further price increase. I realize the manager has to come back and tell us where that money would come from or where it's being reserved, but the public is probably not going to know that by Tuesday. So I just think we have done a disservice if we want meaningful public input. The process that we're using here doesn't do that. And even if you want to go with this project and take on those risks, which I do not, we at least owe it to the public a full articulation of what that risk is so that they know how to hold us accountable. I have no further questions, Mr. Mayor. That's just my public statement.
And John, I
Thank you,
really
Councilman.
appreciate your, your opinion, and, believe me, we truly appreciate your wisdom and your view of things. Thank you. Anybody else at this point? If I could just say, and once again, my respect is, for Mr. Moss is paramount. But one of the things I think we're trying to do as a city is to take the city to the next level. This was a complicated project from the beginning. It had significant amount of public input, I believe, something in the 30s of meetings with various stakeholders and, people in the community. It hit a number of bumps in the road, some of which maybe could have been handled better, but the other thing is too, the economy, we hit the COVID. We had problems with acquisitions, that Mr. Moss was involved with, but thank God he's now back on board and able to help with the Norfolk Southern right-of-way and things of that nature. And I think it's just my focus group of one that, we're 4.5 years into this project, and we have discussed it, and we had to deal with some twists and some terms, but, especially now with what's going on with the commodities, with inflation and everything, it's not, the folks' fault. And I think what we're trying to do here is to create another destination at the oceanfront that the people of Virginia Beach can go to and enjoy. And the other thing is, too, trying to make the oceanfront year-round. Because I think as we're discussing, as Mr. Taylor, Mr. Adams, going forward, we're going to have to create those new revenue sources that are out there, by economic development. And to do this, I really think it sends a strong message that if we can put together somehow, and I'll tell you what, the creative tension that's here and trying to get to yes on this between members of the council and going back and forth is a healthy thing. But I think if we can prove that we are open for business, that we have the capacity to get these deals done, and, I just do that with assurance, knowing that if we have a 3,500, if one thing, something in the water approved, if people have things to do, that's a good thing, with the variety of entertainment and, just welcoming people out there. So, but once again, I think as we do go forward, I think, 4.5 years, I think we'll have enough information out there, hopefully for the public, but I'll tell you what, I think there are a lot of people have put in, a couple thousand hours on this?
Yes, sir. It's been staff intensive, yes, sir.
Yeah. So, but once again, I thank you. Are there any other questions or comments?
So
Okay,
Mayor, if I may, just to ensure that we've got the charge right, we would need you so the earliest possible date that we could potentially bring this back for your consideration would be 1 week from today, and so if I'm so one, is that when you would like us to bring it back, and if so, are you comfortable with us bringing, obviously not forecasting a vote, but the development agreement amendment along with terms to be posted on the additional items?
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, if we can get whatever information we can get out now, so certainly, if we bring it forward and we do elect to go forward with the vote, the public will have an opportunity to chime in.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll be back in a week.
Thank you very much.
You want to do the agenda review first, and then comments?
Yeah, okay, just to make sure we're going to be on time, we're going to do the agenda, review first. And then, John, you're going to be on, Vic.
Well, thank you.
So if we could first look at the legislative agenda, what I thought I would do is go by each section and see.
I think that's a good.
So, section 1,
Till we get there.
Yep, let us get her.
Let us get there.
okay.
This one is correct. In the record today. We reached out
Do you think we can get it done next week and not every week?
It's not urgent. 30 days older.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Okay. Okay, we ready, folks? Okay, good.
All right. In section 1, there's just one item about the term limits. Is everybody okay with that?
No.
No.
Okay. So Mr. Branch is no.
Wait a minute. I'm not hearing what you're saying. Could you talk a little louder?
This is the one on term limits.
System.
Um,
7C.
Section
My
1.
position
It's not.
in general, and that this will apply to all of these items in here that have to do with our voting system, is that anything relating to our voting system should be taken to the public. And I just don't think that the right thing is for us to bring up something like this and just push it through without without public input. And I prefer referendum to things that are going to change our voting system. So all of these that have to do with changing our makeup of the body, it would be no.
Okay, Mr. Moss?
Well, I'm not in favor of the first one, term limits, only because it's a constitutional amendment. It's not a charter change, and I think that's the General Assembly's purview. And if they want to do that, then I think they would probably have a statewide referendum on that. We have proposed charter changes in the past that were subject to approval to the voters to be adopted after the General Assembly approved it, and we have done that in the past. But in this particular one, it's really not in our original jurisdiction to be, we don't own the Constitution, that's the General Assembly with the public, so that's why I'm voting no.
Does anybody object to this being pulled? Mr. Rouse?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Being that I'm the one who sponsored this piece of legislation, I'm also open to actually taking this to the public for. I understand it's a constitutional change at the state level, which is in the General Assembly's peer review. That's all well and understood. And so, what I also like to know what the public is at with this particular question. So I'm not opposed to it not being in the legislative agenda now, but I do think it's something we probably should discuss.
We can certainly
Being that
discuss.
we have a new system coming on board.
Okay,
pretty soon.
but we'll eliminate it from our agenda.
I'm
For
fine
this,
with
but we'll continue the
Okay.
conversation.
All right, section 2, filling vacancies, and that's number 2, and number 3, the membership of the Board of Equalization.
Well, the Board of Equalization was requested by them. We
Right.
discussed it back to have
Everybody
more
okay?
members for
Everybody
that.
okay with that one?
The other one is subject to approval by the voters to be, before it is actually adopted. If this was to take something away from the public, I would say give a referendum first, but this is, I don't know about all of you, but I have universally heard from people that this is something they really like, and most council members have expressed, we don't really like doing it. So,
Well-
but I certainly would accept if the majority
We
want to
know
pull.
that you're for it, because you've pushed it.
Right, but if the majority wants to pull it, I'm not making
Is
a last
everybody
stand
else
on it.
for it?
Okay, so we can go ahead and pull it. Is it okay, folks?
Well,
I'm
I'm
not
not in
for it.
favor of pulling it, but
Yeah, I didn't want to.
I don't want to
I
pull
don't
it.
wanna
Maybe we should
pull
take,
it.
well, I don't want to pull it either.
Okay.
How many no's are there?
Yes, Dana?
If I may, Mayor, the two charter items are on separate resolutions, so there will be an opportunity to address them individually.
Yeah.
We thought that made sense with
Oh,
the.
okay, I'm sorry, I was just looking at.
No, it's
the-
quite all right. But yeah, so in order for us to have a full package for the General Assembly, we did that this year.
Okay,
In the past, it
sorry,
was
I
intended.
was looking at the table of contents.
And John, I
You're
do
right.
agree with your charter change
Yep,
for,
we'll just have that discussion when the time comes, and
yeah.
it will be done.
Okay.
Okay, all right, but still, number 2A, Mr. Branch is against it. Ms. Henley's against it,
Rocky?
Rocky,
Which one's
Wilson,
now?
Me.
Lewis,
Oh, filling vacancy.
Dyer.
Well, are you pulling it for
We're
I thought
pulling
we were
it
on
for
discussion.
the consent agenda?
No, we're saying we don't, well, I guess, no, that's right, we're gonna be voting on it, because it's part of the thing.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's true.
yeah,
Okay.
I would
Are
think,
we going to put the rest on consent?
Yeah, that's what the Congress does.
well, that item can be voted on separately from
Right,
the
we can
rest
vote on
of
this
the
separately. You're right.
agenda. So what I heard was you wanted to pull it from the consent agenda and deal with it as a separate resolution.
Right, okay.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that way
Okay.
we can do that.
Board of Equalization can be on consent, right? So getting back to the legislative agenda, does anybody have any issues with any other items on it?
Wait a second.
Yeah, please take your time, go through.
I'm not in 3.8. I don't disagree with the substance of it, but I don't think this is the right process for doing it. That's the restriction of candidates for election.
Right.
I don't think this is the right process. I'm not opposed to what it's trying to achieve, but this isn't the right way to get there. That's just my personal view.
I agree with that view. I don't support this.
So we're gonna pull it.
We'll have discussion, correct?
Yeah, let's go ahead and pull it.
Thank you.
So at least we'll have discussion on it.
Mark?
So the way that you have historically handled the legislative agenda is if you're not all in agreement, it's not on your consent agenda, and then somebody makes a motion to either approve all of it or whatever parts of it that the person making the motion wants to approve, and then there can be a second, and then there can be a substitute that says exclude this one or exclude that one. But that way you get to have your debate, and then you ultimately get to vote on how to do it. So, for example here, just based on the comment that was just made, someone can make a motion to approve the legislative agenda, all of the items except item subsection 3, part 8. If there was a second, then you could have a debate. If Mr. Rouse wanted, just as an example, to say, I make a substitute motion to approve it, but including 8, and there was a second for that, then you'd deal with the substitute, you'd follow Robert's rules to get through the process.
So-
I'm not telling you you have to do it that way, I am just sharing with you the way that you have done it in the past.
All right, so far, we've got section 1 pulled, and 8 pulled.
And 2, I think.
Well,
That's a
2,
Yeah, but-
item on the
we're gonna-
agenda.
Mark,
gonna
are
vote
you
it
saying we
separately.
should do this informal?
I'm saying you would pull the legislative agenda from the consent agenda, and that you would bring that up, and then somebody would make a motion to approve it all, and then you would deal with it at that point.
Okay. Does everybody agree to do that? So we'll just,
How we
pull
get
the,
there.
Right.
we'll hear basically all of them make the motion with
Is
the
there,
exceptions.
is there anything else that needs to be pulled?
I have an item that I have to abstain on. It's an encroachment, but that might,
No, but on
We
the
there?
legislative
No,
agenda.
no.
Oh,
we're
let's say
talking
ju-
about
I'm
the whole
sorry.
thing, Informal.
Okay.
Well, my understanding in talking to Mrs. Wilson, Mr. Stiles' staff, is that these two ordinances concerning item 5 under ordinance and resolutions need to be deferred in order to make some changes to them. Is Ms. Wilson here?
Yes.
Hello, Kay.
Yes, sir, I believe that Mr. Tahan, it came to me, Mr. Tahan had said that he would wish to defer those because they've been meeting every Friday and have more changes that are there in those two ordinances. So my understanding was that those would be pulled and deferred.
Do we have a
I
date?
believe they suggested till January.
I'm sorry, could we identify which ordinance?
This is 5, A,
right,
and B.
I was gonna make a mention of that.
5A and B.
Okay,
under ordinances and resolutions.
Yes,
till,
so,
till when?
The second Tuesday in the third Tuesday in January would be best to give the.
January 18th.
January 18th, well, that is that third, right.
Just looking.
to give them time to get all of their comments together and me time to write it, and that January 18 would be terrific.
January
All right, if
18th.
we could back up, so we've got number 3 is going to be on consent, is that correct? And number 4, A and B on consent?
On 3, I have to abstain, and I filed a letter with the city clerk.
Yes, sir.
It deals with an encroachment possessed by a Dominion
How about
Energy.
number 4, A and B and C?
I'm voting no
I
on
was going to
that.
say, John, you usually vote no.
That is correct.
Okay, number 6. Any problems with number 6?
Excuse me, so 5 is, point of clarification, 5 is on consent for deferment?
Until
Yes,
January
okay.
18th.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, number 7, 7A and B.
7A and B are all right, but I need to defer C because the applicant has a number of questions, and we didn't have time for staff to really get with him to answer his questions. Recognizing that the next meeting is actually next Tuesday, that may not be time enough to do that, so I would defer it to the first meeting in December.
December 7th.
December 7th.
Okay.
So we do have 2 speakers on that. We have the applicant and 1 other speaker, so I believe that will have to be pulled.
Okay, so this is the Sam Fiddler Road?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, all right, I did let him know that I was going to.
If he shows
has
up,
to
then
have
we would need to pull that from
Okay, so
consent.
So we'll
Ms.
pull it
Simmons.
for now.
Okay, so we will pull that.
And then 7A and B will be on consent. Okay, 8, A, B, and C.
Vice Mayor? Vice Mayor? I
Yes.
just want to acknowledge that this was originally printed, 8C was printed with an error where the staff documentation was inconsistent and recommended denial. We fixed it. I just wanted to make sure that everybody in the public understood that that was a mistake and we initially intended to recommend approval.
You mean 7C?
8C.
8C,
Oh, 8C.
so it's approval.
But what you all have in front of you and what's on the city's website is correct. My office made the correction and apologized.
So I'm confused. 8C in my book reads denial.
That is, if you have a new brief agenda
Oh, a
in
new
front of you.
agenda, okay. I'm
And that's-
sorry, I'm looking in my book.
Yes, you're looking at the one that was printed
It's
in.
my agenda doesn't say that.
And there's one that was at your desk today.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
Okay, number 9, ordinance to transfer A and B. Consent. Okay, let's go to planning. 2 is pulled. Okay, so number 1, Princess Anne. Oh, this we're gonna defer this one.
Sorry.
I thought this was
Number
ready to
one.
go.
No, we deferred it from October until now, but we can approve it.
Right, this is
Okay.
ready.
Well,
There were some concerns.
I think we need to defer this.
This is the one where Forbes Candies is being impacted?
Well, you mentioned that to me, but that was news to me, so I thought we were ready to approve it.
No.
Well, how can they be impacted by enforcing just the status quo and not changing it?
Well, according to their representatives, they're being impacted.
Well, I mean,
I got some calls on it.
Is
Well,
Taylor here?
they might be, but how do you get impacted by something that existed when they got built? I don't understand that.
Is Taylor here?
If we need to defer it, we can defer it until
We
next
we
week.
do not have any speakers signed up for this item.
Oh, I know, but I was told we needed to defer it because of Forbes Candies.
Really?
Yeah.
Which,
Okay, why don't we go ahead and defer it to, so at least we'll get it squared away.
Well, can we have discussion on it? Because
Yeah.
why?
We're willing to, not to, go ahead, I'm
Well, I
sorry.
just need discussion. This is the first I'm hearing
Let's just
about.
go ahead and pull it.
Forbes deferring.
Yeah, I'm in favor of approving.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and,
Mayor, members of council, I briefed you on this item a while ago. There was concern for the residential setbacks. In the draft up until October, we had the reduced setbacks for residential properties and along General Booth. The existing guidelines have those at 75 feet, and at the deferred on October 19th, you requested that we go back to what it is in the current design guidelines at 75 feet setback from General Booth and residential properties. So that's in the current version that's to be voted on tonight. Forbes Candy is looking at a site in Corporate Landing and had been going by the design guidelines that were in place since July before we changed the setbacks. So they're for the proposed setbacks.
That's the key word.
Sorry, proposed setbacks is the consideration. So that is the issue at hand with Forbes Candy.
So how long do we need to defer this to look out for Forbes Candy?
What is the setback that they are proposing and where is it?
So they are looking at a site along General Booth Boulevard.
And 75 feet is too far to be back from the road?
Correct. My understanding of the issue,
I
yes.
think we should just defer this and see if there's a vote that will
Yeah.
approve it, because I'm not
There.
concerned about their proposed project.
Okay,
We would ask for a deferral on this, yes, sir.
okay.
I'm not voting for it.
Taylor,
Yes.
how long does it need to be deferred?
Just 2 weeks. We do have a situation with an existing company who we have been able to unaccommodate with the existing criteria. And so we would just ask for a little more time to come back on that.
Are
But
we having a meeting in 2 weeks?
No.
That would be December 7th, the next.
December 7th would be the next time this could come back. Yes, ma'am.
So are you anticipating coming back telling us we have to change what we want to do?
I can't answer that at this point. I don't know the answer. This is just the request that's come.
Okay, let's go ahead and defer it at this point.
I don't want on consent agenda. I want that discussed.
I would
Yeah.
too. I think.
Yes, sir.
Alright.
And we owe you a full briefing on this before we come back. We recognize that.
All
Okay.
right, we'll pull it. Number 3, Beach District, the distilling, Virginia Beach Distilling.
I'm good with 3, 4, and 5.
All right, that's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, that takes care of that. Mr. Moss, you have some news for us.
Yes, first of all, I want to just say thank you to the public for their vote of confidence in the city council and the city staff to deliver on those 21 projects, and also to step up our maintenance of ditches, canals, and ponds as a separate initiative. I will admit I was somewhat surprised myself. I thought it was going to be close, but 72.7% of the voters said yes. I think that speaks very highly of our voters who took time to read the excellent material that our staff and Julie Hill prepared. I know all the council members appeared at different forums and spoke on its behalf because we were pretty unanimous on the threat. And as I told the manager today, it's always bad to have a shortfall, but a bigger challenge is when someone writes you a check to fix it, because now you have to perform. I think we have the city staff and team that can do that and do it well, and we're going to move out smartly on getting the oversight. But I can't say thank you enough to the public. The margin was humbling, to say the least, but I do think it sends a strong message to the larger people looking to come to Virginia Beach business-wise, that, like we tell our kids, never short yourself, always invest in yourself. And this bond referendum is an investment in the future of Virginia Beach, and I couldn't be happier about the outcome. And I look forward, I'm sure all of us do, of working with the city manager and staff to successfully deliver on it and put out lots of signs when we start those projects so people can see where we're putting their investment to work. But it was an all-hands event, a team sport. Everybody's a partnership, and it's nice to have that kind of unity in our community. We haven't had it since a bond referendum like that, as Ms. Henley knows, since 1986. So, and I don't think that was by 72% either. So I'm just floored and very proud of the voters, and just wanted to say thank you, I think, on behalf of all my colleagues.
Thank you. Any other comments? Barbara?
I just have something along those lines. I think last week was several pretty neat things happened last week. Of course, that bond referendum vote was more than neat. It was fantastic. But it really puts us in a position, I think, of having a mandate from the public to do something about the flooding and the sea level rise. And we've got all of that wonderful work that's been done over the last several years to apply now and get that job done. But then on Friday, the Dominion Energy presented or submitted to the State Corporation Commission their wind energy plan. And I think that is going to be another really tremendous thing for our city and the state and our nation really going forward. And then, of course, we heard about the approval of the federal infrastructure money yet to come, which will certainly be good. I think we've got a lot of really fantastic opportunities facing us right now. And in thinking about all of this, I just couldn't help but remember that in a few years ago, I think it was 2013, we adopted this sustainability plan. And this is not just an environmental plan. It has actually 10 areas, and the first one is people. And our people certainly are important, particularly as we're trying to reconnect from this pandemic. This plan, of course, kind of went by the wayside and sitting on the shelf someplace with all that's happened with the pandemic and so forth. But I would really like to pull this out now and see if we can do an update of it. I was the council liaison with this being developed, and I would volunteer, if it's all right with the council, to talk with, we had quite a lot of partners in this, to talk with our partners and see if there's interest in bringing an update. And if it's all right with you, maybe at the first meeting in December, I would like to report back what I find from people who participated in this. And this was to every year say, how are we doing? And I think just being able to go over these goals and objectives and just say where we are now would be a really good exercise for us going forward. So if it's all right with you, I'd like to pursue that.
Sure. Okay, at this point, if it's okay, we'll curtail comments, and we're going to take a very, very short break before we get going. And we got a couple, we're going to honor a few people in the next segment, the formal section. So let's just take a quick break for now, very quick.